Hey, hello, hello, hello. So, it seems that we come back to the same topic over and over again. and, and what is that topic? That the topic of the mind and the persistent belief that with the conditioned, limited knowledge of the mind, that we can somehow manage our lives. And now, for normal folks, right? I call them normal folks, people that are not addicts, or their addiction isn't killing them. It doesn't matter so much. You can do whatever the heck you want. You really can. But for the addict, in the alcoholic, the drug addict and the alcoholic and the gambling addict and there's some addictions that are just, they really take us out of the game, and for many of us they kill us, and so it becomes imperative for us to find a way out, and for those of you who have family or addicts and alcoholics, and you've watched your loved one kind of go down the tube, and maybe after spending lots of money on treatment centers and all kinds of things, you realize that maybe the only hope is through prayer, and so has it come to that? Yes. So there is something in the universe that's beyond the understanding of the mind. See, the mind, the logical mind, the analytical mind, can only take us so far. And even the very highly educated, even Einstein didn't get into the spiritual realms. He could go a long ways. There was an amazing teacher and master, Dr. David Hawkins, and Hawkins developed a system of measuring, vibrational, our vibration, and he said that Einstein didn't quite, the level of unconditional love or love starts in the 500s in his scale, which was 0 to 1,000. Look it up. Hawkins vibrational scale. It's really, really interesting. It gives us a language to be able to discuss, where we're at in things. So anyway, I was with a group last night, and we were talking about Hawkins stuff, and in moving into the higher realms, into in awakening in his scale, he goes to 1,000, which is Christ consciousness, and many of us had spent much of our lives, especially the addict and the alcoholic, in the very lower realms, in guilt and shame and grief, and so somehow we got programmed with a lot of that, and that's what I was explaining to the guys last night, that for me it wasn't a luxury that I could study this stuff, or that I was on a spiritual path or spiritual pursuit. It wasn't a luxury. It was like a necessity. Thank God that this. Thank God that really that I had been an alcoholic and an addict, because it drove me to find the way out. And even though the way is really clearly detailed in the 12 steps, I resisted. I didn't drink. I had many years of what we'll call sobriety, but I wasn't happy, joyous, and free. I was still trying to figure it out with my mind, and still trying to, do enough affirmations that I could power through to this, elusive level of success that I thought was going to give me peace of mind. And I'm grateful that I lived long enough to kind of try all the things to finally realize that with my mind, with my conditioned beliefs, which had been kind of put together at a very young age, by life in my family, I would say, and they're very limiting. My beliefs were very limiting, and about the world. The world, was not a safe place, and that was like dyed in. It wasn't just a casual belief. Those were fundamental beliefs, and so I couldn't kind of from there, from that point, from that that idea of life, there was no way to live in love, because what was really prominent in my world was need. And fear, told me that the world wasn't a safe place. And so that's the mind of usually of the addict and the alcoholic. The world's not a safe place, and we believe that, and no amount of kind of education could shift that for me. I really had to surrender all of those old beliefs. I had to let it all go and realize that they were just that. They were beliefs. They weren't really me. Who is the me that we're talking about? And that's what we got into last night. At one level, there is no me. It was a agglomeration of ideas, of concepts, of belief systems. And I believe what you told me. I believe what my mom and dad told me. What the conditions of the 50s. I was born in the 50s, and I was, there was a lot of fear. There was the Russians are coming, and all the kind of fear that was around at the time. Not unlike the fear that's around now with this virus, and kids are being brought up in this idea that the world is not a safe place. And I'm not saying that there aren't dangers. I'm just saying that, we can rise above, but we have to surrender this idea that, if it used to be, I had this saying, if it's meant to be, it's up to me, and well, who was the me that I was talking about? A very limited me, and so surrender for me was was the only way, and to this, and it's interesting because people since the dawn of time have said to God or this higher power, show me and I'll believe, and it seems that universal intelligence has always said believe and I'll show you, and but it's more than a belief. It moves into a relationship, and it's like, there's no place where that power isn't. It is in everything, and so we grow into that, and it's very difficult to kind of explain because we're then explaining it with our mind, but I don't know. I call it the isness, that stillness. And when I meditate, it's like I really experience it, and there's a sense of calm that's come over in my life. A sense of compassion, a sense of a love and tolerance for all. And where did that come from? Like, I didn't create that. I didn't. That didn't come out of my mind, because my mind, as a child, there was, it wasn't a safe place. It didn't feel safe. I didn't, So that's the deal. It just really, over and over again, I see, because I work with a lot of guys. I do a lot of 12-step work and a lot of sponsorship, and I really love doing that. And and I see how persistent the illusion is to, that these young fellas, they have to do this, or they have to have a relationship, or they have to, they're just like, yes, that success is being with somebody. And I encourage them to, take time to go inside, to be alone, and find that inner peace that's there. It's in every one of us, It isn't something that we have to earn. It's there already. But many of us, think that the peace will come from being with somebody, or having enough money, or having, in some way created from the outside, having the right vehicle, and so it's interesting to watch. I mean, I lived in it myself for many years, and yeah. So that's kind of my story today. That we really, if we're interested in peace, if we're interested in in experiencing love, not getting love. It isn't. We don't get love. We are love. And experiencing that, it requires a basic surrender of all that we think is true, and And if you really want to kind of experience it so that there's a knowingness, there's a couple of things that I can suggest, to get that knowingness that comes. It's like the surrender can, it can be an educational variety, and some of it's understanding, but it's so meditate, really. We're going to do that in a couple of minutes, but and also my suggestion, boy, it's warm here today. My suggestion is, be with people who are on the path. Hang with my mom used to say, hang with the winners, so be with people who are on the path, like that beautiful group last night. These are people who are really interested in, discovering the intricacies of life, and the real core of life, and fun to be with them, to be in their company. So that's a bit of it. It's not an easy pill to swallow sometimes, that we have to really surrender our ego, that we have to just let it all go to and what is the ego? Well, let me just say, if you're having fear, if you're experiencing fear, we call it a lot of names, anxiety, we call it a lot of names, then know that that's the mind, and the mind is creating these scenarios, and I live with what I call kind of a low grade fear all the time, and a bit of a low grade anger, was there. I had a chip as a kid, a terrible chip on my shoulder. That was, my chip said, "Don't mess with me," and that went out in front of me, and that was my protection. So when you're living in that kind of a fear-based reality, then that that's the ego I'm speaking of. And it's tricky. It really is. It doesn't want to give up control, but it will. You can have, a love-based, compassionate, life where intuition tells us moment to moment what we need to know. We don't have to be right. We can surrender being right. We don't have to make people wrong. We're living in a real sense of oneness, where nobody's wrong, and we don't need to be right or wrong. So that's a possible. It really is. That's so possible. Okay, you guys, I'm going to read from our little book for the day. What is the date? It's the 7th of April. Look at this. I'm so glad to be outside again. I've had a couple of days in March where I sat on the deck, but now this is my favorite little spot. And behind me is my little garden. We'll put in a garden. I've got a compost over here that's been cooking all, winter, and so I'm looking forward to working in the garden. I love getting my hands into the soil, and my bare feet on the ground, and life is good. Life is so good. All right, and it's great that it's not dependent on what's going on outside of me. It really is. It's like, there's a flow, and we've resisted the flow. Many of us have resisted the flow, and if you can get into the flow, it's amazing. And we discover, our purpose, and things just all flow. So we can have that. It's a fact. April the 7th, thought for the day. Oh, there's the garbage truck. Hi, buddy. I hope he takes I have an extra bag out there. I have a sneaky suspicion he may not. April 7th, thought for the day. It says, and this is, by the way, this little book was written in 1954 by a gentleman, I forget his name right now. And so sometimes, because, it was written like, 60 some years ago, sometimes the wording is a little dated, and and I have to edit it a little bit. It's a little dated. It can even be uh, um, a little sexist. I know. The '50s, right? And it could even be a little racist sometimes. But it was the time, you know. The core of this book is about love, and so I edit as I go sometimes. It's you know the '50s. Life has changed. We've come so far. You know, I think not only are are individuals awakening, but I think that as a people we're awakening. I know when we look at what's happening, we think, oh, it couldn't have been. This is terrible, but I think everything is for us. Nothing is against us. I think it's all for us, and no matter how tough we think things are, they're for us. So just imagine, what if everything was for us? What a beautiful way to live. Here we go. It says in AA, because it was mostly about AA, but I sometimes I changed that to, in the 12-step world, an alcoholic finds a way to solve his personal problems, or his personality problem. Yes, that was my personality problem. I think I just talked about it. Was the way I was thinking, and my fear-based idea of the world. He does this by recovering three things. First, he recovers his personal integrity. Yes. And why were we out of integrity? Why was I out of integrity? Why did I lie? Fear. Fear always was the father of the lie. And so first he recovers his personal integrity. He pulls himself together. He gets honest with himself and with other people. Yes. Faces himself and his problems honestly instead of running away. Takes a personal inventory of himself to see where he really stands. Then he faces the facts instead of making excuses for himself. So recovering my integrity, is great. I guess tomorrow we talk about faith. We recover our faith. Okay, meditation for the day. When trouble comes, do not say, "Why should this happen to me?" Leave yourself out of the picture. Think of other people and their troubles, and you will forget about your own. Gradually, get away from yourself, and you will know the consolation of unselfish service of others. Yes. After a while, it will not matter so much what happens to you. It is not so important anymore, except as your experience can be useful to help others who are in the same kind of difficulty. Isn't that beautiful? So we recognize, everything is for us. Even if it seems like, oh, this is the worst thing that could ever happen, it becomes an experience that we can help others from. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may become more unselfish. I pray that I may not be thrown off the track by letting the old selfishness creep back into my life. Pray that I may become more unselfish. I pray that I may not be thrown off the track by letting the old selfishness creep back into my life. Yes. Beautiful little daily reading. We're 3 weeks away from having read this every day for a year. Isn't that beautiful? When I first started this the 1st of May, never would I have imagined that I would have done a whole year. And it's been so good for me. It really has. And so thank you for being part of it and joining me. Many of you, have joined me every day, and I appreciate that. And I also have a YouTube channel that's really grown. I'd love it if you go and subscribe there. So the next thing we're going to do is one of the things that I think is indispensable on the spiritual path. On the path of realizing who we are, self-realization, and that is we're going to have a short meditation. I call it sitting. I don't call it meditation sometimes, because what happens is that people have this preconceived idea. They think, oh gosh, I can't meditate, and we do. We have this preconceived idea. I can't make my mind stop. Well, your mind doesn't need to stop. Okay, that's kind of fact number one. The mind, don't worry about it. We're just going to sit for 3 or 4 minutes, and you can do this. Like literally, we're going to sit for 3 or 4 minutes. We're going to drop in, and it's a practice. Remember, anything that you first started, It seemed uncertain in the beginning, and as we began to, it became part of who we are. The example that I like is as a kid riding a bicycle. And, you know, I upset that bicycle a few times, and I didn't think I was going to ever be very good at it. But, I knew that other people were doing it, and I should be able to do it. And of course, I kept at it until I got, really good at it. So that I know that's a very simple example, but it's the same with this. You know, everybody tells you, wow, this is so good for us. This is the path. This is, it's good for the brain. It's good for everything. For the body to settle down, to stress will evaporate and all of that. And so I think we're all convinced it's a good thing. So we're just going to take a couple of minutes to just drop in and experience it, and then we'll practice it. I try to do it with you every day. So here we go. So close your eyes. Trust me, even though you probably can't see mine right now, they are closed. Just take a breath. Just as we drop into the body, we experience for me, I experience like this sense of stillness that's just there, always. And it's just there. So the sounds of the birds, I don't know if you can hear them, but allow those sounds to bring you into this present moment. Any sounds that are in your environment can just bring you right here. So allow those to be part of the moment, include them. Isn't that beautiful? Just for a minute, imagine where you hear those sounds. Do you hear them outside? Well, actually, no. We hear them inside. And as we go inside, as we're sitting here and we hear the birds, when we go inside, in a way, the inside disappears. And the sounds help us to expand into this space, into this now, into this nothingness, into this oneness. If thoughts come, just come back to the breath. As our shoulders drop and tension rolls off our body. Totally here on this chair. In this beautiful moment. Again, if thoughts come, just recognize there's nothing to do. Just let them go. And we don't engage, they just quiet down. That's the practice. Okay. So you can stay as long as you want. I'm going to leave you. Love you guys. Thank you so much for joining me today.